Well, hey there. Welcome back to Factorio Space Age. I'm Joe Mama, your host. Here we are on the graham cracker of love. Actually, take a look at this thing. It's expanded in length a little bit, giggity. It's not quite a graham cracker, not really a Charleston chew. It's just, we'll call it a Snickers bar. It's getting longer, and I'll explain all that in a little bit. But if you remember last time, we were venturing out toward the shattered planet, as is our goal. But I will tell you that since that last episode, I aborted that mission. And then I made another attempt. I aborted that mission. And I think I did it probably about 3 or 4 more times since the last episode, made an attempt and aborted it based on things that I've learned, changes I needed to make, and realizing that there's a better way to do things, and just there's optimizations that could be made, and I didn't have the materials on hand to do it. I try to, like let's take a look at the let's take a look at the, what do you call this thing? The hub. Let's take a look at the hub real quick, and you can see that I've got lots of belts, I've got lots of undergrounds, especially green ones. I've been using the heck out of those, and I've got splitters. And I've also come to change my thought regarding buffers. Okay, yes, I do believe in buffers, but in the last episode I kind of said, well, the buffer really doesn't matter, because the principle that you need to kind of adhere to when you head out toward the shattered planet is that the distance is so far that you can't really hope to have a stockpile big enough to handle everything you're going to need. So you are going to need to gather materials with your little asteroid grabbers. Wow, that's loud. You're going to need to gather materials with the little asteroid grabbers and grind it up and make all the materials you need to shoot more asteroids, to break them down. And then you need to make your fuel, water, sulfur, all the things that you need to make the ammunition to shoot more asteroids down. So in order for that to happen, you basically have to have quite the infrastructure. And if you have a good enough infrastructure, then technically speaking, you wouldn't need the buffer. But I will tell you, again, let's look at not the space map, but we'll look at the Factoriopedia. And we'll go to space, and we'll look at the route between the solar system edge to the shattered planet. And we've looked at this before, and you can see this white line. This shows where we're currently at, which is about 200,000 kilometers of the 4 million we need to cover. So we are, what is that? Is that 5%? Are we 5% there? Yeah, I think that's about 5% of the trip. And as you can see, the number of Promethium asteroids, big red rocks, increases just like crazy the closer we get to the end. So you're going to need to have a lot of materials. You're going to need to have a lot of, what is that? That's oxide asteroid. You're going to need to have a lot of materials on hand to just shoot those asteroids. You got to get the red rocks out of your way. And so notice too that the peak of production, the peak of metal gathering, is going to happen right around the halfway mark, 1.6 million kilometers. That's when it peaks, metallic asteroids, and then it starts to wane, and it's not really great for the rest of the trip. It's about 20, and with all of that, you need to be able to produce enough to shoot these asteroids. So it could be very interesting, and in order to ride that wave, that fluctuation, you're going to have a decent buffer. And right now it seems okay. So what I'm doing is I'm keeping a stockpile, and this does a couple purposes. First of all, most importantly, the stockpile helps you ride the wave. It helps you power through any very dense asteroid fields that you run into. So you have that buffer in case the number of materials you need to expend outpaces your ability to replace them. So you have a buffer. But it also lets you monitor, having a good stockpile kind of lets you monitor your production, how capable your production is to keep up with the demand, because I can look at that, and right now my initial numbers are 12,000 bullet magazines, 12,000 rockets, 5,000 railgun rounds, and I've got 5,000 explosives buffered. I've got 4,000 iron plates. I've got 4,000 steel plates, and I'm rocking 1.5K, about 1,500 fusion cell. Fusion cells? Fusion fuel cells? So one of the reasons I had to turn around, everything was going great, but I realized that my fusion cell count was actually dropping a little bit fast. I don't think I would have enough, so I went ahead and nuked the hell out of it, and now I've got some really good numbers for fuel. I should have enough fuel to get through here. Fuel is the only, or I say fuel, not fuel for the ship, but fuel for power production. Power production is the only thing where you're kind of screwed if you can't. You're probably not going to be able to produce what you need locally unless you're, I don't know, unless you have enough steam engines or something. You might be able to produce enough water. Really, fusion is kind of the best way to go. If you got the technology, set up a fusion reactor, and or a couple of them, as I've done. And I'll show you something, because I did actually set up a power pole, and if I scroll onto that power pole, it's telling me what my electricity is. I've got the ability to produce 900 megawatts of power. I'm currently using a little over 200, about a quarter. So that kind of tells me that I got a little bit of overkill, at least right now. So, but it does mean that I need more than two. If I'm at a quarter, I'm going to need more than two of these things. All right, so yeah, principle being, you need to gather everything you need along the way, and you need to have the ability to process those materials. So let me talk you through some of what I've run into. Okay, this really is just an update. We're probably we're not going to make it this time around, at least not in this episode, but I want to kind of go over a few things I've learned in this process. So right now, the way this is set up, if I haven't said so already, there's a belt that goes all the way around, circumnavigates the entire ship, and all it does is it carries the asteroid chunks that the asteroid grabbers grab. Okay, so it just does a big ring around the ship, and each of the asteroid grabbers deposits on it, and then at different places along that belt, mostly up here, we filter off, boy, all that noise. We filter off the type of asteroid we want to process. Like right over here, where is it? Right here, we filter off the metallic asteroids. Wow, yeah, quite noisy. And this was my initial and at first my only system for iron processing, and it just does this little sushi loop around here and past these asteroid grinders. But notice what's happening here. Okay, I've got one belt discharging all 16 of these things, and over here, these grinders aren't working because the output belt is full. Okay, now I couldn't do a complete redesign of this area here without affecting these asteroid grinders down here, so what I decided to do is just add to the ship. And so here, what I've done is I've created this system here that takes the asteroids, and I want you to notice something. There's no iron ore being cast over the side. Even though it's all blowing right past here, it is not being cast over the side. It's the iron ore, rather than being cast over the side like it was last time you saw it, it goes onto that asteroid chunk belt. Right here, the iron ore shares its belt with the asteroid chunks, and it gets taken all the way down here. It comes around. Oh, see, now some iron ore is getting cast aside, but there's a reason for that. We'll get to it. The iron ore comes this way, and then it comes down to a second set of iron grinding asteroid grinders. Okay, now these are set up differently. In this case, each pair of asteroid grinders feeds its iron ore onto this belt that is that is serviced by a row of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 smelters. And then there's another 13 smelters over here to handle the other pair, this pair over here. All 4 of these deposit onto a common belt, and these, I guess, is it 26? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9? Yeah, 26. 26 smelters, more than enough to handle the output. And then each of these over here, this 4, this 4, this 4, outputs to its own set of 26 smelters. And as you can see, the belts, for the most part, pull the iron ore out from under the inserters really quick, so they can keep processing, keep the process moving, so it isn't a bottleneck. And same over here. That's the key, is just get that iron ore out from under those inserters so that they can continue. Because if the output gets full, these things stop working, and you don't want them to stop working. You need the materials that they provide, and you need them now. Like you can see. All right, here. Well, we got enough bullets. Okay, so that works out well. But look at the railgun bullets. Everything that I have producing railgun bullets, all of these down here, they're working their little tails off to produce more bullets. So the materials are needed. There can be no bottlenecks. You've got to get rid of those bottlenecks. So let's see what else. So that's happening. Oh, and any iron ore that's extra so what I did, this iron ore just feeds directly into these lines of smelters, but there's so much iron ore being processed right now that even what I have is not enough to handle every little bit of iron. So there is a place for the iron ore to get rejected over here too. So unfortunately I have to throw some aside, because all the smelters just about, I think these are full. Yeah, like these are full of steel right here. So we've got plenty of steel, but all of the iron smelters are working. If not, they're already full. So then the bottleneck becomes getting the iron plates to where they're needed, especially making bullets. So I've got 2, actually. Is it 1 or 2? I think I've got, let's see, this goes this way. Okay, so I've got 2 green belts of iron ore going back up to production of ammunition. One of them, this one right here, it just directly feeds, it doesn't even go into the buffer, it directly feeds into the ammunition production line right there, and then right here. So because the reason for that is, look at these inserters, they're working their tails off, but that's a bottleneck. Okay, I've got 2 inserters putting iron plates into the hub, and why does that one turn the wrong way? Oh, okay. Yeah, I've got a few inserters putting iron into the hub, and I've got inserters pulling out of the hub, but even then, the inserters themselves are bottlenecks. I could probably replace them with stack inserters, that might help, but anyway. So I found that I was meeting the demands of ammunition by directly feeding the outputs of the smelters into the production of ammunition. So I as much as I tried, the buffer is itself a bottleneck, so that's unfortunate. But I think it's but it's keeping up. It's keeping up with production of ammunition. Okay, same with rockets. Okay, so here's a big change that I made. You remember I was swearing to the efficacy of explosive rockets because of the area of effect. That's true, but take a look at something. I didn't notice this before. So if we go to, let's see, ammunition, here's an explosive rocket. It says damage 100 plus 380 explosion. That's what it currently is right now. Now it has an area of effect size. So this is an explosive rocket. It says, oh wait, okay, damage 50 plus 190 explosion, and then the area of effect size is 6.5. Under that, it does 100 damage and 380 explosion. Okay, that's pretty good, but if you're shooting at, but it costs you, okay, 1 rocket and 2 explosives. Now look, a single rocket costs 1 explosive and 2 iron plate. So the total materials needed for an explosive rocket are, what is that? I got 1 explosive, so 3 explosives and 2 iron plates. Whereas with a normal rocket, 1 explosives. And look at the normal rocket under effect. It says the damage is 200 and 760 explosion. At its best, the red rocket can only do 100 damage and 380 explosion. That's 1/2 of what the regular rocket can do. Okay, now granted that is against a single asteroid, but quite honestly, at least with these rockets we can afford to shoot several of them, you know, at an asteroid. Besides, I'm also telling the railguns right here, these are your preferred targets, but feel free to shoot at other targets as they show up. So there's not a lot of multiple targets, of target clusters for these rockets to necessarily shoot at. So it's working great to switch to normal rockets. They get produced faster, they use less explosives, which is important because now my explosives production line can keep up. And it can produce enough explosives for both regular rockets and railgun rounds. And railgun rounds, notice, they just like plow through just about anything except red rocks. They can plow through 2 of anything, and they're just shredding the opposition here. So they're working great. So yeah, big change, switching to normal rockets. And I did that because the benefit that I'm gathering from fast production and, frankly, more powerful rounds, at least against a focused target, is more than the area of effect, which doesn't even do as much damage as a regular rocket. You know what I'm saying? So I'm comfortable with that switch. It was hard to swallow at first, but I'm comfortable with it now. Also, red rocks. You remember I set up, where was it? Right about here. Yeah, here's one of the places. I set up this row of inserters that just rejects the red rocks and throws them out. Well, turns out, if we're going to see an increase, because let's revisit the Factoriopedia again. And red rocks. Okay, the production of huge Prometheum asteroids is going to go way up. Okay, so with that in mind, we're going to have a lot of red rocks to deal with. We get no benefit from the red rocks. None. We're not making science. We have no desire to make science. So we don't need to be handling them at all. We have to shoot them for safety. We have to get them out of our way. But we don't need to hold on to them. So I've told all the asteroid grabbers. Oh man, that noise! Take a look at the asteroid grabbers, and you're going to see that I kind of did I put filters on all of them, basically saying to most of them, grab anything except the red rocks. Don't even pick them up. Once they're little garnets like this, they can run into this platform or whatever. Doesn't matter. Just don't even fill the belt with them, because it will clog the belt if we allow them to. So, also, and like I said, some of the asteroid grabbers, I told them to concentrate on just grabbing... Man, such noise. Some of them just concentrate on grabbing iron. Okay, we need iron the most, so concentrate on grabbing that. Others, iron and carbon. And then the others, I mean, we've got so much ice. We've got so much water, we're good to go. So what we can afford to tell some of these asteroid grabbers to ignore the water asteroids, the ice asteroids. So that's helpful. All right, what else can we talk about? Oh yes, the trolling motor. So one of the issues, for those who don't know, you may, one of the things I was running into, retreat was becoming such a common thing that when you, okay, if I just stop the ship, like if I just hit pause, we'll go ahead, pause thrust, and this stops, the engine stops, and watch the speed. We're just going to watch the speed settle down, but it's going to settle down past 0 to the point where we're being pulled backward. Just watch it happen. And my only explanation for this is the gravity of the star, the sun that we're moving away from. Since we're moving toward a shattered planet and out and away from the limits of the solar system, then presumably we're moving away from the sun. So whatever the sun is called, I'll call it the sun for this, for, you know, intents and purposes right now. But okay, look at the speed. Okay, now we're going into negative territory, which means we're being pulled backward. Okay, now I can only assume that that is the gravity of the star. Does that make sense? So we're fighting the gravity of the star. We're feeling the effects of the gravity well all the way out here. And you're going to see it settle at around 10, I think. We're going to be moving backward at about 10 kilometers per second. And this is something to be considered when retreating. Okay, here, see where it settles. Yep, 10 kilometers per second. So we're being pulled backward 10 kilometers per second. So if I turn the ship around and head toward the sun, head toward the edge of the solar system, we will have basically a 10 kilometer per second tailwind. Does that make sense? Think of it as a ship. Right now we have a 10 kilometer per second headwind. So no matter how fast we go, we're going to have a penalty of 10 kilometers per second as we move away. But we don't want to go fast anyway, so that actually doesn't bother us. That's okay. If that's being if that's there, if we have that penalty, because really we want to keep up. Our ammunition, our guns need to keep up with the destruction of asteroids to keep the way clear, and we can't be moving too fast. I was losing components on the front of the ship because they were hitting asteroids, or because rockets were exploding too close. Does that make sense? Because they were aiming at targets that were right on top of the ship already. So it was doing some damage. So we want to go slow. So if you don't think about that, we were, let's see, with one engine, with this engine here, we were going at about 35 kilometers per second. That was a good speed. It was probably a little bit faster than we needed, but it was a good speed. But then when we realized, oh geez, you know what, this design's not going to work, we need to go back and make adjustments, so we turn around. Well, 35 suddenly became 55 because our 10 mile an hour headwind suddenly became a 10 mile an hour tailwind, or 10 kilometer per second, whatever. So now we're moving through the asteroids that were just as thick at 55 instead of 35, and we were getting the snot kicked out of us. So that led me to consider, well, if I go really far into this, if I go, let's say, 2 million kilometers into this and realize I have to turn around, then that means that single engine is going to be too fast, and I have to sit here and turn the engine on and off to keep up with it, or to keep it under control. I have to manually regulate the speed, and I thought that there's no way I can do that. So to manually regulate the speed for the engine, first of all, I had to move the engine closer because I didn't want to run power lines all the way down there. Yes, take a look at the map. Where is it? Axiom, right there. See, there is a power line. I saw that, it shocked me. Pardon the pun. There is a power line on the map now. So how crazy is that? But the reason I did that is so I could run a control wire from the hub down here to this pump. So what I've done is I've put a pump in line with one of the fluids that the engine needs to operate, and which in this case was thruster fuel. So I've got thruster fuel gated with this pump. Now really I don't care about it pumping, I just need it to act as a valve. So it's either open or shut. That's all I want. So I've set up the behavior on this pump. Now look at this signal V. What I did, you go up here to the hub, and when you wire stuff to it, you have a few things you can check off, and one of them is read speed. And in this case, the speed is the signal V, Victor. And so I'm like, all right, this pump will read the speed. So this pump, I've set it to 30, constant number. I can adjust it right down here, which is very cool. So what'll happen is, as the ship approaches 30, this pump shuts off. See that right there? It says yes, it enables at less than, like this shows the current speed. The little white number there shows the current speed, which is, as we talked about, -10. We're going backwards at 10. But at less than 30, this pump operates and allows thruster fuel to go into the engine. Okay. So if I unpause it, this thing should take off and bring us up to 30. Then the pump shuts off. Okay. Now, as you already know, the engines carry a reserve of both types of fluids. So it will continue burning until that reserve is gone. So that's something to keep in mind. So if you set it to 30, understand that it'll be cut off at 30, but it's still going to burn and maybe pick up more speed as it goes until it gets to that, until it runs out of fuel, and then it slows down until it gets below 30. Then it takes a big gulp of fluid again, and then it will run. What I found is that once it settles down, after a few minutes, it will run. If you set it at 30, it'll operate at a speed anywhere from about 30 to 31.5. Okay, let's take a look though. But now see, it's getting this big gulp of fuel right now. It's full. Its reserve is completely full, so it might actually burn a little longer than that for the first few cycles. Let's take a look. So we'll go ahead and put it on automatic. Now let's see what it does. And watch the fluid levels on the lower right. You can see, okay, we're at 0 speed. Okay, now we're gaining speed. We're going away from the sun. Let's see what we see. So this is on the trip out. Okay, not so important. One engine speed is okay, at least for now, but we may find that it's not okay later on. I don't know, but at least now we have a way to control it, because I could drop this number to 20 or 10 or whatever. You can see the pump is operating. Now watch as we get to, we're at 25 now. 26. 27. I don't know how well you can read the numbers on your screen. 28. 29. And boom, the pump stops operating. But notice the fluid levels are still high. They're slowly burning away. Now we're at 31. Okay, now the thruster fuel is dropping like crazy. And notice the speed is starting to drop. So, about 32. Oh, there it goes. It filled back up again. Once it dropped below 30. And okay, so we're operating from about 30 to... Let's see where the number peaks. 31.26. 31.25 miles, 31.25 kilometers per second seems to be the upper limit. Okay, so it's regulating itself, and we can change that. It's not as important on the trip out, but if we need to come back, it's vitally important that that engine, because like I said, we're going to move at 10 even without the engine moving. We'll have a tailwind of 10 kilometers per second. So that's where we're currently at. Or that would be the situation if we turn around. Okay, now let's take a look. We're currently at 232,000 kilometers. Again, long way to go. But our numbers are still up there. We're still at 12, 12, 5, 5. Our materials, we're still at 1.5K fusion fuel. We're still really good. I'm feeling pretty good about it. So, and with this regulation, with this speed regulation, I feel okay turning around at any point and, you know, not having to regulate the speed. This will regulate it for us. It's doing a damn good job. Look at all the smoke, though. It's not something you get to see often, is how much smoke, how the rocket engines, you know, the smoke spreads out from behind the ship. You don't often look at that. So that's kind of crazy. The animation for the rockets is just freaking awesome. I love it. Well, if you look down here, you can see that we're casting a lot of copper, a lot of carbon, and a lot of sulfur over the side, but we only need those really for explosives and fuel. And we're still way good on fuel. We're way good on coal, way good on sulfur. So we're making way more of this stuff than we need. So I'm not too worried about that. And no, look at that. Now we're no longer throwing iron overboard. Okay, so that means we're using the iron we're using the iron we got. And I think the reason is it's because we came to a stop and we processed all of the extra iron and steel. So now we're refilling our reserves. So, yeah, that is very cool. But it seems to be working. It really seems to be working. I'm trying to think of anything else that, you know, might work for us. Now, in the future, if I just want to take the ship and do trips in between the planets, this engine can run all it wants. That's fine. But once I return, where is it? Is it up here? Is this where I did it? Okay, all I have to do really is put elbows back here, and these engines will ignite, and this engine will shut off because it will constantly be above 30 kilometers per second. So not worried about that. That can continue to do its thing. But I kind of like to not have to do this with the elbows. You know what I mean? I don't want to have to manually remove parts to make the rocket engines work. So something I might consider in the future. Take a look at this. It says one of the circuits. One of the circuit conditions is that it can read where you're moving from and moving to. So maybe if I'm moving from, or if I'm moving to, oh, what would be a good use for this? If I'm moving from the edge of the solar system, I could tell it to regulate its speed and cut power to all the other engines. But that means it would be, if I was moving toward Aquilo from the edge of the solar system, it would do the same thing, and I don't want that to happen. So I guess I could say, I don't know, or I'm sorry, I say if I'm moving from Aquilo to the edge of the solar system, it would regulate it there too. I don't need it to, because it doesn't say which direction. It just says moving to or moving from. And under those conditions, I could say, hey, if you're moving from the edge of the solar system, regulate your speed. But, you know, or moving toward, I could say moving to, I don't know. I just, using that, I got to find a way where, because really what I want it to do, I only really want it to regulate its speed when it's moving toward the edge of the solar system from the shattered planet. Like, I'm basically retreating. That's the only time I need that to happen. So I got to figure out a way. Now, maybe I could set it up so both conditions are true, like say moving to the edge of the solar system from the shattered planet. If those two conditions are true, shut the engine off, or yeah, shut these elbows off. Maybe, I don't know. Although the way it sits right now, I only really want these engines running. Right now I would not want all four of these running. So I don't know. Using those conditions, there might be a way to more accurately regulate my speed without having to intervene by removing parts of the ship. I don't like having to do that. It just feels unfactorio to me, if that makes sense. But anyway, so that is currently where we're at. As things change, oh, by the way, let me how far have we been into this game? We have been 416 hours into this game right now. So I did not take note of when we left. It was probably about an hour ago, I would say, when I left, or maybe 2 hours. So say 414. If we continue on this route, the 414, it took us 2 hours to get this far, and we are 5% of the way. Well, shit, then that looks like a 40-hour trip ahead of us. And I don't know. We'll have to see. I'll have to keep an eye on my resources, and I'll let you know how it goes. But anyway, this is just an update to let you know what's going on. And hey, if you learn something about optimizing your ship to reach the shattered planet, hey, we've done some good today, right? All right, well, I'll let you know as things progress, and if I make any greater changes, I'll let you know. Y'all have a wonderful day, and I will see you then. Ciao.